Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of our Newcomer series for Grim Dawn. Today, we're going to be talking about something super basic, but pretty important if you have got friends. It's multiplayer. I know. Everybody has friends these days, right? That's a thing. As always, though, before we get started, just remember to subscribe, like, or leave some opinions in the comments. If I'm missing something, or there's questions, or even if you want a specific topic covered, let me know. I know, I did the whole YouTube thing backwards this time, and just throwing you for a loop, I'm sure. Now, multiplayer in Grim Dawn is mostly your typical action RPG affair. Up to 4 people can play together, and the enemies out in the world will scale based on the size of your party. Particularly if you and your buds are rocking a first-time playthrough of this game, you'll want to stick together. Running off on your own when you don't have any gear unlocked or any levels or any real understanding of the game, the monsters can get a bit overwhelming, and when you scale them up a bunch because you're playing with buddies, well, they're just going to bite extra hard, and they'll easily overwhelm the unsuspecting wanderer. Now, while the increased difficulty might not sound like the best thing in the world, you'll also gain increased loot drops because of that fact. So, whether it's your first time or you and the boys have been throwing down for months, playing in a party is almost entirely worth the effort. But hey, if you're like me and all you have are friends who like to play other games, solo is just as rewarding in my opinion, if not maybe more, because you can test a little bit more heavily on what your build can do, instead of watching somebody Aether Ray all of your enemies into dust while you are trying to get to them. So that's just an opinion of my own. Now, in order to play multiplayer, you'll need to host a server, and you're going to do that in the title screen. You'll see that in the bottom left-hand side of the screen by switching the game from single player to host multiplayer. If you're not going to be hosting, all you have to do is click on hit join, or you'll only have to hit join multiplayer instead. And then once you're set up to host, or once your host is set up, you'll just join on that room using the name, the password, whatever stipulations you and the boys have come up with. But if you're going to be the host, all you have to do is name it. You'll set the rules and have everyone jump in. But a quick note here. If you're the masochist who likes to play hardcore characters, remember that only hardcore characters can play with other hardcore characters. So if one of your friends has a hardcore and you don't, then you're out of luck. So there you have it. But to dive even further down that masochist rabbit hole with the hardcore characters, you can enable the PvP aspect of Grim Dawn. I know, that isn't something that we were expecting to get in this video series, was it? But if you're on a hardcore character, the relation there is that if you die in PvP with your quote-unquote friends, that character is still permanently dead. That is just how it's going to work. If you are going to play those hardcore characters with each other, I would highly recommend that you have the biggest stick in the room to avoid the cheeky bullshit from that one friend. And we all know the guy that I'm talking about. If you don't know the guy that I'm talking about, then you are that guy, and I'd prefer if you stood an extra 50 feet away from me. Now, you can't loot your friends once they're dead if they're on hardcore characters or softcore characters, whatever it's softcores. That's a weird term. But taking pleasure in smacking people down on occasion isn't uncommon in the video game playing hobby, is it? At least I don't think it is. Maybe some people derive pleasure from solo experiences, but I always have fun knowing that I can kill my friends, especially if they're talking shit. Now, there are also different options for loot in multiplayer. So if you're the host, and if you're getting into a game, getting everybody their own share of loot is what you'll want to have the instance loot on for. That is the option by default. So if you are going into a game and you want everybody to have their own stuff, you want the game to drop everybody their own things, leave it where it is and stick with the instanced loot. However, if you're looking for a bit more of the gimme gimme attitude and putting a little competitive spin on the grind, you can switch over to the free-for-all loot. Any item a monster drop goes up for grabs to the fastest clicker in the West. And if you see a nice shiny purple weapon drop from a monster, you have to be the closest one to it, clicking on it, and that is some competition that I don't really need, especially because I get lost in some menus sometimes and I won't even see drops happen while people sneakily click on stuff and totally ignore my questions about what the monster actually dropped. So personally, I will stick with the instance loot because I'm not looking to verbally assault any of my greedy friends, but everybody is different, right? Iron bits, which are the currency in the game, also interact differently depending on the loot parameter that you stick on the game. So if you pick up iron bits in free-for-all, the bits are actually going to be split between all the players in the party. That being said, if you have 100, or one person picks up 100 bits, and there's 4 people in the game, you can do the math, but that's 25 iron bits per person. And that would happen with every iron bit that you pick up, assuming it's divisible by 4. But if you pick up bits in instance loot, then only the player that picks them up will have them. So if player A happens upon a bit stash of 10,000, they're the only person that's going to get that 10,000. Not that iron bits are completely, fought over in any regard, but still, it's kind of fun to think about. Also, if you're in a PvP room, remember that if you're not in a party with the other players, you will not share iron bits or XP. So, if you're doing some cheeky hide-and-seek type game where you've got 3 people versus 1, or maybe 2 versus 2, whatever the case may be, those parties will not share XP from monsters or loot or bits or whatever. So, if you're split up in the parties, you're not going to share, which seems like common sense, but you never know who is thinking what about stuff. Now, the last thing I want to mention about multiplayer is trading. Usually, trading is pretty important, at least for friends, I think, because particularly when I play with my friends, we're usually just going through tons of items in the game and asking each other what we're building. We're all kind of aware of what each of us need. So if something drops from a monster that we don't need, we'll ask one of the other party members if they need it for their build. And if they do, we'll just drop it on the ground, let them pick it up, they'll have at it. If you are not as trusting as some of my friends and I, you may want to opt for the trading menu. Now, the trading menu you'll access just by right-clicking on the portrait of whoever you're trying to trade with in the top left-hand corner of the map. You can trade for iron bits, you can trade money, you can trade money, you can trade gear. I'm not real sure what the limitations are, but I know that there are things that you cannot trade. But specifically, before I go further with that, on the screen, this is a secret shop full of monster infrequents. He is always going to be here. He is going to have the strange wares. He also sells you a blueprint for a skeleton key if you don't have that. So you can buy that from this man if you don't get it from the quest in the Act 2 key dungeon chain. So, and this man's is always here, and you get to him by going down the river after walking off a little nook in the Blood Grove. In the Blood Grove, he's always going to be here. There is another secret location out here as well, which will take us to some Forgotten Gods lore and secret stuff, but I'll take you there as soon as I remember where it is. But back to trading. So the trade menu, once you open it up, maybe somebody has the purple or legendary item that you are definitely after, and you have got one that they are perfectly after as well. And then you just throw them down. You swap them in the menu along with whatever else that you want to trade, and then the game will pass them along. If the trade is canceled for any reason before accepted by both players, the items will go back to their respective owners, so you don't have to worry about losing anything that way. Now, there are items that can't be traded, and you will see on your item description, they'll say something akin to, I think it's Soulbound. Now, when an item is soulbound, that means that it cannot be traded, it cannot be dropped, and if you try to drop it, the game will ask you, oh, this item is soulbound. If you try to drop it, it will be destroyed. Do you really want to do that? And then at that point, you can be like, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that, or you could just drop it on the ground and lose it forever. But soulbound items can't be traded, and soulbound items are going to be items that are... first of all, are going to be items that you take to the illusionist. If you change the visual, if you change the transmog on an item, that is going to make it soulbound, and you will have to change it back to its default shape in order to trade it. The other option would be if something had an augment on it. So if you put an augment on an item, no matter what it is, you will have to remove that augment before you can trade it or throw it away. So if you're trying to give it to a buddy who really needs it, just the base item, what you'll want to do is remove the illusion at the illusionist, take it back to base mode, and then you will want to remove any augments on it at the inventor. The inventor does have an option for removing that stuff to make it tradable again. So, all that being said, you can still trade anything that is soulbound, you just have to unsoulbind it first. Pretty easy, right? Just lots of stuff to remember. Sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes you just be like, oh, fuck it, I just want to throw this on the ground and get rid of it forever, and that is the easiest option. But since we're talking about multiplayer and we're talking about friends, we don't want to throw garbage on the ground to disappear forever if our friend is in need. So, there you have it. Now, there isn't a whole lot more to multiplayer other than, the questing aspect. So everyone will want to be present for quest lines and turning those in. So if you start a game with all brand new characters, you won't really have to worry about it because your buddies can turn stuff in. You can pick up quests as a party along the same path. But if you enter a game at a different point in the story, or let's say the worst case scenario, your character has to complete a quest in the past that the rest of your party has already completed, or the host of the game has already completed, you will now not be able to complete that quest. So you'll have to go do that on your own, and then come into the game to continue along the progress line of questing. That being said, you can still pick up new quests in the multiplayer games. I'm trying to remember specifically how it goes because I haven't played multiplayer in a little while. But I'm 99% sure that you can pick up new quests along the way. I don't know if you continue down the main storyline quest if you're missing one of those. So if you needed to, we'll say for instance right now, I've got to slay Karaz, the Sigil of Cthon. But if I was in a multiplayer group who was already into Act 5, and I still had to do that, well no, because he's always there. You know what? Since I don't have the most experience with it, I'm not going to talk out of my ass on that one. But since the enemies do come back, as long as your group hasn't killed a boss or done a quest in the game that you have just entered, and that enemy is still there or that quest is still there for you to do, you can do it. But if not, you'll have to either have them restart the game, or you'll have to host the game to finish the quest, or you'll finish it in single player and then rejoin the game. There's different options. It's not the end of the world if that happens, but it can be a pain in the ass, especially if you're dragging your party along, or they can't complete something because you're stuck. You get how it goes. But anything else that I can think about in multiplayer that might be difficult? There are a number of things in this game that I think are more fun with a party of people, namely the Crucible, which we'll have a video for tomorrow, the Shattered Realm, which we'll have a video for later on in the series as we get there, and then let's see. I mean, always with the big boss fights, I think having multiple people is fun, because when those bosses are just hyper juiced on multiplayer scaling, it offers a whole new perspective on those fights, because sometimes your friends don't have a well-equipped build, and they will just fucking pop when hit by a big boss's attack, which is hilarious to see while you're dipping, diving, dodging, and weaving all the crazy stuff that some of these bosses whip out. So the entire experience changes when played in a party, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend it if you've got the buddies to do so. But if you don't feel like you have to play this game in a party. It's a different experience. I wouldn't call it a better experience. Just separate from what you're doing in single player. Also, if you're the kind of person who likes to trek out on their own, complete all the quests, do everything as fast as possible, I'd highly recommend solo, at least for your first experience. And that way, if you do end up playing multiplayer, you can be the guy who's got the character, or at least the knowledge of what to do, and you won't get kind of strung along if your multiplayer partners are dragging their feet. So that's really all I've got to say about multiplayer and the experience in and of itself. Again, the Crucible video tomorrow, we'll try to talk a little bit about the multiplayer experience there, but that is a really, really great experience if you're just into leaderboard climbing with your buddies, or you just need that horde mode feel that a lot of other games have. It is truly a wonderful time. But yeah, more to come on that. I guess where we're at right now in the game, we've just got to slay Karaz. Karaz is actually a pretty difficult boss if you are not paying attention. So, since we're running up on him here soon, we're just going to pop this monster shrine real quick, collect any gear that drops out of it. But Karaz is a 2-stage boss right before you get into the Astrakarn Mountains. He's a chthonic enemy. So he's got mostly chaos and void-based damage. No, don't run down here. No, this is the wrong direction. Shit. Oh, no, it's not. I was thinking of something else. I think I was thinking of that tomb that we went through earlier. That wasn't the one that I wanted. But anyway, yes, so Chthonian enemy, chaos damage, shreds elemental resistances, has a big health bar, summons chaos damage dealing minions, and has two, maybe not even two. He has a number of abilities that you'll have to get around, but only one of them has ever killed me without me realizing it, and that's just because I was standing there trying to face tank the man while he ripped wicked void farts all up in my face. The ability that I'm talking about, though, you'll see it once we get there. Hopefully we can burn through these little fuckers pretty quick. Okay, perfect. We are making our way upward to the boss pit. It's kind of weird where he's located in this map. He is actually located in a small room behind this huge, like, bloodied. This room is where I would think you would fight him, because this seems like really, like, on the nose, super cool. This would make a cool boss environment. But no, he's actually in a little, like, prison cell behind this, which is interesting. But yeah, lots of blood in here too, I guess. Sacrificial altar. He starts out as human form. He's not super difficult in this form. Doesn't do a lot of damage. Certainly doesn't take a lot of damage, but, you know, things could be worse. We're just going to keep him inside our fire and hope to God that our Blackwater Cocktail will actually spawn at our feet next time, or at least on the enemy that we're throwing it to, so we can get that defensive ability. And then we're going to watch him transform into Tentacle McToothy Face. Spawn a whole bunch. Look at him. He's just all tentacles, and he's got a completely vertical mouth with eyes on his hands. Now you see there with him raising his hands directly up into the air, that is going to spawn these like vitality puddles. They're either vitality or chaos, but if you stand completely still when he does that, tons of them will spawn underneath you and will from there on shred your health pool to ribbons. I've been killed I don't know how many times by those stupid chaos puddles because I was never looking for the animation that he does to raise them. And they will absolutely wreck your shit if you stand in them for too long. So, that being said, let's pop open our chest of spoils. We've got, the apothecary. I need to make a build with the apothecary set because I think it's really cool, but I think it's more of a multiplayer build if I'm being honest. Yeah, but all that said, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks so much for hanging out, guys. We will be back tomorrow to talk about the Crucible. I won't actually be playing in the Crucible, but there are a lot of different things to know about it, so we'll run them down. But peace out. I will see you then.